All right, guys. So that last video I showed you how to make this, and we went ahead and did the quad remesh on it. So it's all really dense mesh right now, and we want to bake this perhaps to a low poly, but problem is we don't have a low poly for it. So we're going to have to actually create that and model it around this basically. We still also have a problem with the high poly in several places. Well, first, there's nothing on the left side here. So if we wanted it to be symmetrical, we need to use Mesh Machine probably and Alt Exit and just symmetrize it real quick for that piece at least. Which is nice. Have more detail over here now, right? Um, there's still modeling errors here or there, and the quad remesh wasn't perfect, so those will show up in the bake. But we're not going to worry about that. This is mostly about just trying to get the low poly made and how you would bake it in Substance Painter and get it back into Blender perhaps after texturing it a little. So the main thing is that these all had subdivisions on it. We can continue to subdivide it if we want, but if I remove these, it looks virtually the same. So there's no need to have those sub-Ds necessarily. They don't add that much effect to it. So, and it's still very dense. So believe it or not, these models here, you could back them up if you wanted to and start on a new set possibly. So I'm going to duplicate them, like Shift D, right click, press M, move to a new collection, and just call it backup. So we have those over there. Okay. And you might even call it like high poly backup or something like that, but we can hide it for now. And these ones now we're going to decimate. So decimate, we want to turn it off in the viewport and then just bring them down to like something like halfway, maybe 0.5 to get started, and then just apply it. So it'll take effect. You only have to calculate it once. It's destructive, but you only had to do it the one time. And you could do it, multiple times if you wanted to. So 0.5 again. And apply it again, right? Something like that. That's a good setup there for the most part. You're trying to avoid really long triangles that look like little lines everywhere. It's kind of doing it in here a little bit. You want to be careful with like something like that because it can cause issues with the shading of the normal map and whatnot. So if we right click shade smooth, make sure we remove our sharps. We don't need them on this one. And so we'll do that real quick on all of them. Shade them smooth, and we'll go back and we'll decimate this one. Turn it off, 0.5, apply. Might do this one twice too. And it looks okay, actually. We'll leave it. Decimate. Another 0.5 perhaps, and apply. And get that. Okay. So our model is now only 800,000 triangles, which is much better than where it was anyways. So that's good. This is going to be our highs, right? We're not going to use naming convention in this one. So we're not going to worry about naming these underscore high or nothing like that. It doesn't really matter for this one. We're only doing one object. So if we wanted to, in material preview, we can set up color ID real quick by clicking new and assigning a material, new, a material, and then we'll leave this one white. There you go. So we have a color ID now as well. It's that simple. And then that's pretty much it for the high poly, right? But we do need to create a low poly around this. So I'm going to create a cube. Let's go ahead and move this cube to a new collection. We'll just call it low. Okay. So we can turn off the high if needed. We can go into edit mode. We can start modeling now. And really, you're going to be jumping in and out of this view, just holding Alt and all that, right? While rotating or orbiting. I'm going to try to set this up in a way where not all of it's going to be covered. It's going to be intersecting. So it doesn't really need to cover everything necessarily, right? But we need it covering up certain areas like this maybe. And on the bottom here, maybe down to the bottom of, not that one, this other piece down here. Right there. See? I want to line this up to that little section where it changes right there. You can extrude it all out on X in our case. Bring it down. Right here, we'll bring it back up. Okay, and this is kind of what we're going to have for now. We're going to take this edge, and I'm going to chamfer this, kind of eyeball it. You see it's hitting about right, but I want it more like like right there maybe. Okay, so this is going to poke through a little bit here. It'll poke through up here. It's pretty good. It's not too bad. Now this object color add-on is actually kind of cool because something you can do with it is you can use it something like a material. I've shown in the past, you can make a material and set the viewport display to a color. You can change the alpha and lower it, but object color, you can do that too. So if you want to grab that add-on, it's just this is usually down in object info viewport display. So if you want to do that there, you just use object. If you're going to use a material, use material, but you can make it semi-transparent at least. So that way you can kind of see what you're doing a little bit. If you want to see the mesh underneath a little bit, right? So this is going to become a very tricky, let's symmetrize it with Mesh Machine. Very tricky little project here. You'll see what I'm talking about as we go through it. We're going to do box cutter real quick with Alt W, send it back, shift click, do this number. We're just going to match it real quick. Something like that. And then this is where it starts to become tricky because we're possibly going to want to do like a loop cut here. This whole edge, we might want to pull over. Alt Z it all the way over like that. Try to match it to this piece down here. Then we might loop cut again. And you can see that this loop cut, we want to do kind of in alignment with this one here. This blue right now is not maybe transparent enough. So we're going to drop that more. Go back to this cutter, and then we can do some additional edits here. We want it in alignment with that bottom piece there. Okay. So we'll be able to take this, extrude it out this way, go into object mode, select this, shift select this, control alt or shift alt X, and mirror it over with machine tools. This mirror on this, we can bisect and flip it if needed, but we should be getting a pretty decent cut here now like this, right? So not a big deal. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and apply it real quick. So Boolean, apply, get rid of it, delete that. We'll have this set up now, right? So it all matches really well back here, but obviously we still have more to do right here. So you just use the N-gon cutter perhaps. Click and drag. Oop. Make sure we select the object. Click and drag. And cut it out. If we don't want it to snap, which it does like every, I don't know, so many increments or whatever, just hold control is the easier way to deal with that. So we can just click, drag, hold control. Click, click, double click. That does the laser cut, right? So no Boolean shapes, I don't think, or maybe it hit them. But yeah, we can apply those real quick, like Alt H, bring them back. We can delete them if we don't want them. All right. Delete the cutter. Well, we don't need to delete cutters. I'm going to delete that export. Oh, that's back. Never mind. I thought that was the export collection. Usually I have by default for the Unreal Engine add-on, but we don't have that right now. So what do we got going on here? What do we need to do? Clean it up. We did some booleans, so use machine tools cleanup feature. This one we don't necessarily need to model out, although it would look nicer if we made our low match that as well. It's not necessarily required. I think this one's up here, this bigger one, I think is required. So it's quite substantial. So we're going to model that real quick. The way I'm going to do this is actually really simple. We're just going to use a knife cut. We're going to free cut it too. We're just going to go to the corner where we think it needs to go. Press K, or excuse me, press K. Go to that corner where we think it needs to go. Start on the edge. Press left click on it anyways after pressing K. We're going to cut to here. We're going to cut to there. Down to here. Somewhere in this area. Over here. Here. Down to here. And over back to this edge. Hit shift if it tries to snap to the center. Okay. So once we've done that, we should have some faces in here now. I'm just going to extrude these out on Y. So I'm going to press E and Y. Top one we'll get right first. Okay, and then this one we can pull out a little bit further perhaps. Got some chamfers going on. We need to match that. It's too big of a jump. So we do that. This one here, got an extra edge in there. Could probably get rid of that. If I had to take a guess, we could. Probably bring this one down right here. So we're just trying to match it relatively close, is basically what's going on here. This edge right here, we could probably just pull it forward. We don't even necessarily have to chamfer that one. We could probably get away with that. Okay. Although I think having an extra edge in here, doing a chamfer maybe, would work out better. But it gets a little bit weird over here on this side. So maybe we just pull them in a little bit more on Y. You can have a thin setup like that, but I don't really like that answer. So instead, I'm just going to leave it. Wondering if I should pull it in maybe instead and just do that. We'll just leave it alone for now. I think we'll be okay. We can probably leave it that way. This next section is going to be rather challenging as well. From the side, you can see it's almost flush with it, so we don't really have to like cut up or nothing necessarily. If we want it to match better, we might, but I'm probably just gonna, we could just cut it from the side maybe. Press K, and we'll just start cutting it out from this direction. Could cut all the way through the mesh, but we're going to symmetrize it, so I'm not worried about that. Right. Okay, this one dissolve maybe. Get extrude in on Y to this section. Just barely get them intersecting with each other. Okay, and then use another knife cut. In this knife cut, we can start, hit X, go over here, grab this, press E and Y. Just bring it in a little further. Okay, so it doesn't contribute much to the silhouette or nothing like that, but it's a big difference, so we can't just leave it a flat face out here. All right, and then we'll symmetrize all that over, and we'll have pretty much a good to go mesh. Let's go ahead and take the alphas here, bring them up, do this. Let's look at it real quick, make sure everything's good to go. For the most part, it's looking like we got most of the major stuff here anyways, right? Yeah, I think we're good. So let's go ahead and isolate it. Let's do a machine tools cleanup feature, make sure it's good to go. All right. Look it over, looking for like little errors and things that we might have created. We'll be able to work some of this out too. Like I could probably just GG twice over there. This edge, I don't know if we really need it like that. I'm going to dissolve it for now. We don't need that there necessarily. We can dissolve it. Okay. Some of these edges might get a little bit finicky when we start doing some knife cuts into it in a little bit, but you'll see what I'm talking about here as we do it. So let's just move those down and merge them, symmetrize. This should still work, but we'll see what happens in a second. Because we're creating more or less like a very basic blocky model, right? Like this is a very low poly model. We're just getting rid of edges as we see fit. But it could end up with like weird triangulation issues. And if we end up doing knife cuts later on, like we press KCA, we knife cut across this area, for example, if Blender doesn't, like sometimes Blender goes crazy with stuff like this, these edges should help this Ngon here for these type of cuts. And we might have to do that on other Ngons as well, but you'll have to try it and kind of see what happens. The thing is it could generate a face back here because it triangulates so weird. Little weird stuff like that happens. But we have to do these cuts to do a skew correction. the way we're going to be doing this. So we might actually run into that issue later on. This might not be quite done here at this point. So we'll see what happens. But for now, this is looking okay to me. So this is going to be basically our low model. Okay. And a few other things we can get rid of possibly. A few extra edges in here. Okay, clean it up if needed. Symmetrize it. Dissolve the center. This one we're going to triangulate, or actually, let's UV unwrap it first, right? So shade auto smooth. Now, normally, I would just say like shade auto smooth, weight normals or whatever. This is so low poly, we just need to shade auto smooth, and we can apply it even, and we'll have sharp edges everywhere. This is what's kind of cool about this piece, is that the only thing we would have to do for a low poly model like this is think of all these sharps as seams, and then whatever else you need to create, like different seams to make it unwrap correctly, that's what you would go do. You would go start unwrapping those or adding those seams in. So at the end of that, you would select one sharp edge, Shift G, select by sharpness, and that's pretty much this whole model for the most part. And we Control E and mark seams. So every sharp edge becomes a seam when you're doing a high to low poly bake, right? And you need those. It's going to work out just like this anyways, okay? And so this model, crazily enough, is already unwrapped. We don't really need to do any additional stuff here to unwrap it. But let's just say we maybe clear this seam real quick. Maybe we don't want a sharp here. We can get away with stuff like this sometimes, okay? It might create a little bit of a gradient in the normal map, but it might not be the end of the world. It'd be better to keep that as a bigger island, perhaps. And a lot of these, you could end up doing similar like things to that, but more seams isn't always better because you're creating more vertices in the data of the model. So it actually uses a little bit more memory and whatnot. There's an argument whether mid polys or low polys are actually cheaper in file size, because this is going to end up having so many sharps in it that you need seams everywhere, right? So with that out of the way, let's go to the UV editor, select it all with A, and we can come over here and U, unwrap conformal. And sometimes you uncheck fill holes, depending on the model. It might make things correct as well. So, but in our case, it's not going to do that. We want to go into edge selection. So tab key with machine tools, you can get the edge or just up there. The text tools add-on, guys. This here has a straighten feature. We want to straighten these ones up. So we're going to click straight, boom. And we can do that. Now, you'll notice if I move that whole island out, we don't want big diagonals like this usually. And that's that big piece at the back here. So we can use machine tools to just quickly Alt-A on a line to the right, okay? Or you can use vertex snapping up here. You can say like G, X in this case, because it's U and B's, and so it's X. If that makes sense, it's X and Y that you can use. So G and X and snap them over, perhaps. You could also try that. So snapping could be quite useful even in the UV editor. Anything else at a diagonal like that, usually if you can have it not at a diagonal like that, that's good to go. But sometimes it's unfortunately impossible to do so. So some things will still be slightly diagonal, right? And for the most part, this looks pretty good. You may want to check it with a checker map, text tools add-on, click checker map. All you're going to want to do is select everything and scale it up. I don't think this works correctly. It's kind of broken where you can't up-res the checker map, unfortunately. But you want to have a little bit more density to it so that you can look through it and say like, hey, you know, is this model, Control-Alt-Spacebar to go full screen real quick like that, by the way. Is this correct, right? Like, does it have any skewing? In our case, no. It's just as good as they get, basically. So you can take all that, scale it back down, start packing it manually, use the packer from Blender. I'm going to use Packmaster. So heuristic on, advanced pixel margin, we're going to set to 8. That'll work fine even if it's a 4K, okay? But 1024, 8 is fine. And then we can turn pre-rotation disabled off, so we already straightened some things out and rotated them, so we're not going to do that, basically. Now, with all that said and done, we should be able to select it and select it all and click pack and then let it go. And you'll see that right now this is starting to come in at, what are we at now? 776. So 80% or higher is usually a pretty good target. Okay. There's different numbers you might want to try to hit for different object, or depending on who you ask, I think. 80% and higher is usually pretty good. So we could probably do better with this somehow. Maybe do some UV overlaps. That would give us, you could potentially go above 100% if you use UV overlaps, right? But in our case, I'm just going to let it roll. We'll use just below 80%, I guess, for this object. So it's pretty packed too. It's not much space in here not utilized. So it's, it'll do okay for our purposes. All right. Let's delete or select it and go back to text tools, and we can delete the checker map. Boom. Just like that. There should be no material on this one. Unless you want a material on it, you can create, material IDs if you have multiple materials or something like that. But in our case, we don't want any. And this is going to be, our low poly model. Okay. And just call it low for now. And we're going to export this out after doing a triangulate modifier. So we don't have to do any kind of fancy setups here. We can just do triangulate, keep normals. Use beauties fine for now. And we can take this and export this. Go to the desktop. I'm just going to call it low. Select an object only, right? Make sure it's visible in the viewport. And export the FBX file, okay? The high over here, got a forward slash to get them back. These ones, we can select all of them and export them. These should export fine because most of it's triangles or it's quads. And if they retriangulate or the quads triangulate or these triangles, they're still going to be triangles. So they'll go into substance fine for the most part and we'll have no issues. But we can't export these as a FBX, selected objects only. We'll just call this the high, okay? And export it out, right? Okay, let's go to Substance Painter now. Let's do this. We're not done with the modeling aspect of this just yet. You're actually going to find that this does not bake well at all. And so we're going to run through baking a terrible version of it real quick. So we're going to go to File, New. We're going to do File, select our low. Okay. We set that to 2048, perhaps. OpenGL, using Blender. I'm going to compute tangent space per fragment. I think this is the correct setting here to use, even though if you look up guides online, they say don't. I think it works better because whenever I don't use it, it never comes out right. So that's why it's working better. Now, load it up. Okay, we got the low in here. You shouldn't see any issues with the model itself as long as it was triangulated correctly, right? Should be good shading and all the other fun stuff going on in this area. So go to the bake setting or bake tab. And what we're going to switch or we're going to do is we're going to load up that high poly. Okay, like so. You see how it's red? The cage doesn't encompass it. So that's the max frontal distance. You got to be careful because you got to push this quite far. And you also have to push the rear distance as well. Now, if we don't hit the rear distance far enough, you'll know because it's going to look terrible in cavities and things like that. So, but you can see our low poly model here is going crazy right now. Not quite doing what we want. And so let's do some test bakes at 512. No extra settings here. And we're just going to go ahead and bake this out, right? Make sure we got everything going. So we're going to bake it. And we're going to turn off the preview there. Okay. And so we're going to see a couple things here that are dead giveaways that things are skewed. First, any straight edge that becomes crooked looking, probably skewed. If we can't see one side of a concave shape here or like cavity, but we can see the other, skewed. Okay. This is definitely all skewed up in here. It's all kinds of nasty. But look at this shape down here. It's all up and down. It's crazy skewed, right? So what skewing is, the best way I can explain this is that, let's say we have a vertex here and a vertex here. And when they average out the normals, right, one's going out this way, one's going out this way, and somewhere in the middle, it goes out straight. And so they're going to there's like a bunch of like every pixel is going to go out in like a different direction, basically, right? And so when we have something like that occurring down here, we have them going in all kinds of funky different directions. That's what causes the skewing. There's no polygons in there, or there's no like extra flat edges in here to kind of create or vertices or normals or whatever. So it's interpolated all kinds of crazy ways, right? So check this out. We turn average normals off and we bake it again. We're going to notice something really cool here. It's all good in this area now, right? But the problem is all these edges here, these need to be averaged. Otherwise you get like really bad bakes in those areas, right? So even though all of these are now not skewed, and that's because it just forces all of these to separate, I believe, is what it's doing. So all these edges are going to look terrible. Right now, so we'll turn average normals back on anyways. And so this is where it's tricky because what we're going to do is we're going to add a bunch of knife cuts all along these edges so that even if this one's pointed out this way, the next normal will be pointed upwards. Okay. And so then the other side will do the same. It'll point upwards. So everything in the middle will point up. That's the idea of fixing skewing. Now, Substance Designer and even Marmoset Toolbag have skew correction that you can just use, and it's pretty much automatic. For our case here, we have to model the skew correction, which is the craziest thing. Now, some guys, what they do is they actually bake out with average normals off and then average normals on, and then they mix it in Photoshop, which, you know, is a thing you can do. And it might actually be faster to do that than, say, what we're about to do. But if we're working on something simple enough, you can actually just model out the corrections. So that's what we're doing. This is the crazy part, right? What we need is the low. We're going to duplicate this and don't mess with one of them, basically. We're going to take this one, for example, and we can go through here. And now we can just press KCA and we can start cutting additional edges near these seams, basically. That's the idea. You don't maybe have to do all of the seams, but some of the key ones can definitely be helpful. And you don't have to do this extremely precise either, necessarily. Like, you can kind of just go through it and end up where you end up. It should work out okay, fine, but maybe not perfectly. We'll see what happens. You can also start off of corners as well. I mean, nothing stops you from doing that, maybe. So you'll see as we go through this process, there's lots of edges we have to cut because of this shape and the way it works. Whoops. That last one I didn't want to do like that. So we can Control Z it back just like that. Okay. Cut that one out. You can get little discrepancies in the shading with this. It does happen, but if you try to keep pretty straightforward with it when doing these cuts, it doesn't tend to be a huge problem necessarily. Sometimes you got to cut like weird angles too. You can turn angle snap off and then maybe turn it back on. Like this area up here is probably going to want like a cut right in this area maybe. And so we could take it all the way down through the bottom here, but if we get vertices too close to each other, sometimes that causes problems. So you might even try leaving like a little ingon or something. You can see how this is starting to work out now. We're not there yet with it. We still got to do a lot of cuts, but you can see what's happening at least. So this triangulation, I'm going to turn it off a second because it's distracting, but let's just press K and C and just start cutting some more. I think we'll do a cut all the way through here. I want one at the top, like right here. One all the way around. I'm going to try to keep them even with that edge too. It can be helpful. You can cut extras wherever you want, really. It's up to you, but you don't have to always finish out the line necessarily, but sometimes it can be helpful. So see, that one just keeps wanting to snap there. I don't like that, but whatever. It can snap there, I guess. You don't have to do all of them like I was saying, but a lot of times they can be helpful. So pull that one all the way through. Right here. We want one right, probably right around here. A little bit closer to that would even be better, I think. It's a little tricky to get in there, but you can see what's happening here. It's just lots of cuts basically, and you know, you can do all kinds of nonsense. Even cuts in these areas help, believe it or not. This is why some guys like to just try to do like a dice, but I don't think it works out that well. It's better to be more purposeful with it. Yeah, I'm gonna turn that off a second and just trace in there. It's no guarantee what I'm doing here is gonna even work out quite right, but we'll see. You gotta trial and error this stuff sometimes, and it's not as much fun as it seems. It's like we might have to do a couple edge cuts right here, for example. And I'll need those on the other side as well, so Kay see it. All right. It's almost like creating a subdivision mesh. It's kind of crazy, right? Might need some cuts in here as well. Possibility. Apparently the way we've done this, it's already kind of messed up, but we'll just do some freehand cuts and see what happens. We'll do it all the way at the top there. We're gonna even cross it over that one, I guess. I don't know. If it has to be done, it has to be done, I guess, right? I wouldn't try to create too many like triangles and things though, because you can mess up your UVs doing cuts. It's just the cleaner you keep them, the better it turns out. Like the more quad type cuts you do, I guess, the better it works out. Try not to create too many like triangles or n-gons. But yeah, it's still gonna possibility it doesn't quite work the way you anticipate. And also, I could be dicing this side up really bad with those cuts because hopefully I didn't have KC on or cut through anyways. Let's do here. We'll do one right here. Okay. Yeah, pretty crazy, right? It's a kind of an insane way to do this, in my opinion, but this is actually how I learned to do it, which is the craziest part because I didn't know how to skew correct at all, except for one video talking about cutting all these extra edges. Just I went with it, and that's what I did for a long time. So I'm not going to try to shift things around because we still have a UV map that's active, right? We'd cut up the front, the back possibly if we needed it, but we don't have no details over there right now, so we're not doing that. We got both sides because it's mostly symmetrical, so we should be good here. Could just continue cutting out a little bit of those edges though, perhaps. Right? Did we have an edge here? We did do an edge here. We didn't do it on this side apparently. So let's do it over here. And there's a good odd chance after doing all this, it still doesn't work quite the way you want it to. It's just one of them things, guys. It tends to happen, all right? Thought I was pressing K and C for a lot of this, but apparently I did not. I had a guy on Discord once say like, hey, why aren't you using mirror modifiers and stuff? And it's because there's a lot of times I found where you can't use them even if you wanted to, even if it was symmetrical. That's kind of the weird thing about it. You wouldn't think that's the case, but modeling like this always does have little crazy workflows sometimes and nuances, and a skew correct like this is definitely one of those areas, I guess, where you didn't think you would be doing all of this. Try not to cut a vertex freely into the face either. I think those work bad, so keep them on the edge maybe. But yeah, so this model, we can just say this is going to be our low skew corrected or skew. Yeah. All right. So it's still going to triangulate, and you'll see now that it has a denser mesh here. Let's turn box cutter off before I mess something up. But this should actually be a better cage as well. So we do the skew corrected version of this. Export the FBX file. Selected object only. don't replace that one. Sometimes it likes to do that where like, at least Blender used to do that, I think, if I remember right. Ever since then, I've been kind of paranoid about it, but where if you select something first and then rename it, it still exports to Krita still does that, believe it or not, right now. It does it, but the project, instead of re-importing, we go to project configuration, select, and the UV maps are all the same, right? So we can do skew correction. Load this one up, click OK. It'll come in now. We have average normals on. And so if we just click quickly, bake it, we should start seeing that all look correct now. You see? Even though we have average normals on. Some of it, maybe not so much. We might be able to actually, well, that's actually from the high to low. That's sculpted out, right? We sculpted that high a little bit by, well, not accident, but we did do that. This could use an edge up here, I think. A little bit closer to that area. This here is probably a result of the max rear distance. If I had to take a guess, maybe it's too high. It's a possibility. Or it could be the frontal distance, but let's take that down real quick. Try it again. Maybe it's not high enough. That's rather odd. We're kind of getting like a double imprint there. I do expect that kind of behavior sometimes. Specifically if you have to push things too far, right? So let's take that down as tight as we can. Pull that back down too. And we'll try baking it one more time. See if that helps. Okay, that helped. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, good. What is skewing though? We're looking for skews. That's all we're looking for because we might have to make some more cuts. That's modeled incorrectly. That's just how that is. This could be a little bit skewed perhaps. Most of that looks good down there. I think that's fine. You can shift right click and drag. Give some more light on it, right? Yeah, most of that's pretty good. Remember, we did both sides of this model, so this side might not be correct. And by the looks of it, it's not too bad either. So the only big issue we have is this area under here in this area, which I don't know how much we can actually fix there because we really probably should have just modeled that a little bit more accurately. I just didn't want to, but yeah, because it kind of looks like it shifts a little. So let's try cutting that anyways. Let's see what happens. Maybe we need to cut it. Oh yeah, we could definitely cut that. Look, KCA right here. And KCA right here. See what's going on the top. Okay. Now, grab this and export it. So now we can hit Control Shift R and rebake. Oh, it didn't fix it at all. Well, actually, kind of looks better. Not really. It's a little bit better, but not that much. Maybe there's an additional cut we can make somewhere. Not really. That's just going to be an inaccuracy in the modeling. So maybe we can't do that one anymore without remodeling that area a little bit. Is this good? That's good. What about here? These little areas like that sometimes can be bad. All right, yeah, so maybe this back one and that right there at the end might be okay. Okay, and let's see. Back one there. Oh, that edge, you see the edge is kind of like tilted? Look at this. If we match the high, see how it goes out at an angle? That will cause it. And sometimes you got to match up to the features of the high poly as well. That's something I probably should have mentioned early on, but we're on the low working. We can KCA and cut it straight on certain edges even. You can cut out straight edges and that'll cause it to work out better. Okay. So once we do that, we re-export it as the low corrected. skew corrected. We reload it, Control-Shift-R, and we should see here when we bake that this becomes straighter, I think. This can be slight, but it should. Yeah, see? I feel like it should be capturing more of the edge from the backside, though. And I'm not sure why it's not. Maybe it's really that narrow on the high. It could be. It really could be that narrow. It's pretty sharp. I don't know if it's that sharp, though. So let's do another cut right here. And we'll call it after this. We're not going to do this all day. Control-Shift-R, bake it. Yeah, it's still a little bit, it still feels like it's skewing quite a bit, but I'm not sure exactly why that would be doing it like that. Because we just got two edges right on each side of it, so it shouldn't be a big deal. It could just be the cage maybe or something doing that. I think it's just the way it's being pushed out a little or something. Or the backwards, the rear distance might not be quite right. Maybe it's not going back far enough or something. No, if it wasn't, then this probably wouldn't show up, right? So don't worry about that. There is an edge there. It's just very narrow. I don't really like that. This front section, is that modeled, do you think? No, it's not. That is not part of the model. So that would be part of the UVs maybe. Or it needs a skew correction itself. So we're going to try something a little different on this one, I think. We're just going to do a knife cut from here to there to there. We're just going to trace this edge real quick. Okay. And we got to do that on the other side as well. See what happens with that one now. I hope I was not cutting this one as well. I'm cutting the high poly here. Did we? I think we did. No, we did not. Okay. Let's turn those off. They're causing too much problems. All right. Last time, last export, right? I promise. This is skew correction. Take, I don't know, whatever. Take it out. So you see what I'm talking about? You can do like really wild things with it sometimes. Like cutting the edge there. Who knew that would actually correct that? It just did though. So anyways, yeah, that's pretty much the idea of skew correction. Probably could do some in that corner. I know we probably shouldn't do it right now, but just the idea of another cut through here. We won't worry about it. All right. You got to get it all right. But now we're golden. We can do, let's say, a higher resolution. Let's do a 2048. A little bit of anti-aliasing, and we'll bake it out like this real quick. And we'll bake the ID map a little bit higher of a resolution here in a sec. ID maps can be a really finicky when it comes to resolution and stuff. It just, the higher the better. More anti-aliasing sometimes better too. Although you could turn the aliasing off perhaps as well. Okay. So here's the main thing. Like guys, we just, once you crank those settings up, like it comes in a lot nicer. Okay. So you can do your preview bakes. If you know what you're looking for, you can make all your corrections there and do it real fast. Not worry about anything else necessarily. And then once you've done that, you bake it out one good time, and that's really all you need to do, right? So this bakes out pretty much perfectly if you want it to. So all you guys that are struggling with baking, hopefully this gives you a really good idea on how to maybe approach some of this. You might still have to cut edges for other parts, you know. you might have to do a bunch manually. You can't always do everything symmetrically. So, I mean, but yeah, overall, not too bad, right? ID map, we unselect everything else, just the ID. We can change the settings here. We'll just leave it basically what it is, and we'll change it to like a 4K. And then we just bake the ID map again. So you can see ID map just lets us assign materials faster. There's a manual way of setting it up, and then there's like automatic ways of using it. So the manual way, we do like a fill layer perhaps, and we want to create a mask. So we're going to do a color selection mask. Once we've done that, we pick a color, pick the color you want. Boom, white in this case, right? So this material, I'm going to make it metallic. And we'll just leave it kind of rough like that, maybe. Maybe make it a little glossier. Okay. That's it. That's all you got to do. More automated way of doing this, like let's say you had material you want to add, like plastic, you drag it out and hold control. Boom. It adds the mask automatically. That's it. You don't have to do anything else for that one. Drag another one out. There you go. See? So pretty sweet. We could change that blue real quick. Just make it like a gray, grayish white. Okay. So it looks pretty much like what we made in Blender, right? So that's cool. It's good to go there. We could add on the very top like a fill layer. And I'm just going to give it a dirt color for now. You definitely might want to add actual texture to this, but I'm just going to add some like a dirt color. Turn the roughness up. And we're not going to use height. And we're going to do a smart mask. Just going to do dirt cavities. Drag it over. Something like that for now. Okay. There's a little bit more dirt on the surface anyways, or in the crevices as well. And so it's kind of like it all got unified together because there's dirt on everything now, right? Kind of the easy way of looking at that. Now we could spend a lot of time texture painting and whatnot. That's not what this video is about. It's just about getting set up and starting going on this kind of thing. Now, if we definitely made a better low poly to match, we could have a lot finer details all over the place. We don't have a little nuanced detail like that, perhaps. But for the most part, you can see we can bake these things, even if you thought it was impossible, right? So that's the thing. And it's pretty much set and good to go there. Now, let's go to export textures. We're going to use the Blender principled BSDF template based on output template. We're going to use a 2K, so 2048. Dilation infinite's fine. I'm going to set this to a folder that I already have set up, which is in my little project folder, textures. And we're just going to export there. And so that's all we got to do. We can click export, save the settings, and you can save your painter file. So if you want to come back and paint on it again later, you could, in case it crashes or something. Let's go over to Blender. We might run into an issue, actually. We'll see if we do. I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use this one real quick. What I want to do is go to Material Preview, go to Shading, click New. This one here, Control-Shift-T. After you select it, using the Node Wrangler add-on, Control-Shift-T, go to Textures, and we're going to load up the ones we want here. So base color, metallic, normal, roughness. We don't need emission displacement or alpha in this case. We load them up with Node Wrangler. It should all be set up properly. sRGB, non-color, non-color, non-color. Normal maps hooked up in a normal. Base metallic roughness, UV mapped, etc., right? Right, and so as we look at this over here, scene's much darker. It's just this the way I have the scene set up, the HDRI anyways. I'm using this tokamak, whatever. I could switch it to something else and maybe it'll be a little bit brighter. But we should see like pretty much the same results here, even though we're on that low poly model, right? It shouldn't look that much different. Now, if for whatever reason you start seeing artifacts in the texture, right? It either means you cut it up poorly, right? Or it baked incorrectly. You have to determine if that's what occurred. But sometimes there's a good odd chance you might want to try this as well. This was a problem for me a few times, but Your project configuration, before you export, you might want to reload the regular low poly, okay? And then export your textures. That might be an issue you run into as well. Although if we're looking at this and we don't see no errors, then it doesn't really matter. You just, use that cut up version. It's fine. And then by the looks of it, I don't see any artifacts really. Maybe it's too dark. Maybe that's why, but let's see if we can find any kind of artifacts in this surface anywhere. Okay, there's one right there, I think, right here. That might be, no, that's part of the sculpt. Okay, because we had started sculpting on it and I messed that area up, or maybe the quad remesh messed that up. That was an issue with that. That's the actual high poly issue, not a bake issue necessarily. That edge came out looking okay. It doesn't look that bad. All right. You see there's a little skewing on this side, perhaps, where it's like angled downwards. So we might want to add some cuts in there. That's a possibility. The cool thing is you could still update that low poly and then rebake it, and then what you'll end up with, this is an issue right here, obviously. We could probably clone stamp that out when texturing, but that's definitely an issue. But you can make those corrections probably and then rebake it and just, as long as everything was automated, you didn't do no paint strokes anywhere for the most part, it should be fun. Or like change the UV maps heavily. You see like there's a little bit of maybe a skew in here. It could be part of the high, but in reality, you shouldn't be like that close up to this thing anyways. Like even if this was like a first person weapon, I mean, we're talking, viewing from back here, it's not that impressive, but maybe from like right here or something, right? You should model more on a first person weapon than this. But if it's a prop in a scene, I mean, really, you can't ask for much better than this. Like this is about as good as it's going to get. So it does feel a little too glossy though. I'm wondering, was it that way in substance too? It just feels a little glossier. There's always a discrepancy between softwares when it comes to PBR. I've always found that to be true. It doesn't look that much glossier. It's just Blender renders a little bit different because of the color management, AGX. If it's like standard, it's closer, I think. But Filmic, kind of the older setup, anyways, is maybe that's what Substance was based off of. I'm not sure. I think color profile and Substance is standard, anyways. I think that's what they're using for the Blender profile, anyways. Whatever the case, we're going to be getting Aces 2 in Blender, I think, pretty soon here. Version 5, maybe, or maybe the next version. Who knows? Anyway, I kind of like Filmic still, even though it's a little bit more, as it would say, washed out or whatever, but I like it. It's more, it feels more realistic to me than AGX for some reason. But maybe a little desaturated on that one. You can always change whether it's like low contrast anyways or high contrast, right? So anyways, yeah, guys, we baked it out, man. We made it happen. I know it took a little minute to do this, but that's just the name of the game for trying to bake something so low poly. And if you don't have like designer, and honestly, I'd say that doing that cuts over like skew correction in designer or even the paint skew correction in Marmoset, I feel like the cuts actually work better in a lot of ways because the one thing they do is they let you work right up to that edge and even go over the edge. Whereas like this other types of skew correction, you really can't do that necessarily. Like you can't paint over edges very easily. But we could run edge loops through edges, which is pretty sick, I think. But we can't end up with artifacts in these areas. Like, and they'll be kind of hard to see maybe sometimes. Like that's a shadow. I thought it was an artifact. That's not that. But they'll be kind of hard to see sometimes. But wherever we've cut, sometimes there'll be like a little glitch in the normal map or something, you know. But in our case, it did fine. No problems. And we're on this low poly mesh now. No cuts. Cool. Cool. All right. I'll check you guys out in the next one. Hope you enjoyed this. See you then, right?